An open letter to the psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists, and cops who detain disabled and neurodivergent people. Written March 2nd, 2021 by Elliot Fukui. Read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz, August 8th, 2022. You do not remember me. I am one of the far too many children that have passed through you, and the childhood you stole from me was a lifetime ago. I was a number, a bracelet to be scanned, another body to be monitored and controlled amongst many. You made that clear to us. Poor, brown, queer, trans, and a girl child. Since you forget so easily, I have taken it upon myself to haunt you through this letter, to become the same specter in the night you have been for so very many of us for far too long, to snuff out your gaslights and leave you in the terror you've created. I often wonder if you are haunted by the screams and sobs of mad children whose pain and rage at injustices we could not name filled our empty bellies and bruised hearts and bodies. We who were shaped out of no will of our own in direct opposition to the American dream, the dreams of families who wrote second-hand destinies for us in the dust that was left from crushed bones and homes and lands we can never go back to. We who could never perform the illusion of quote-unquote normal, quote-unquote clean, healthy, white, or straight constructs you created to control us and mask your cruelty and indifference. We who are your burdens, delinquents, addicts, invalids, brats, I can still see the mad children who survive time and time again only to end up in white-walled cages, drugged and bound, sitting in scrubs, succumbing to the weight of the Ativan and the despair that coursed through our veins. Children whose bodies were turned into experiments for pharma, punching bags, and sexual playgrounds for our peers, our families, and the doctors, nurses, cops, and social workers who were supposed to care for us. I still taste the bitterness of my own blood mixed with the tang of drugs, and feel your neoprene-gloved fingerprints in my mouth, against my neck, back, thighs, and ass. I still feel the weight of your body and your negligence, ignorance, hostility, and shame. I still hear your laughter as you held me down until I lost consciousness. Your shame that you tried to medicate and beat and gaslight into my DNA, or perhaps your father's shame, and his father's shame before him. There is nothing more terrifying than a culture that has so normalized its hatred of itself and the other that your violence and brainwashing is called treatment or care, that our tormentors, jailers, and executioners are your doctors, social workers, security guards, and police officers, and that the neurodivergent, the disabled, the orphaned, and the survivors are expected to swallow this overwhelming violence with gratitude that anyone would care for us at all, even if that care is as ugly, as violent, and misinformed as the ideology and the systems that shape it. James Baldwin wrote in The Fire Next Time, quote, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. End quote. This American hate has swallowed continents, has weaponized our pain in the service of nationalism, patriarchy, and the owning class. It is swelling into the streets, white-hot hatred which we are subject to, an object of, and constantly reproducing that has become an unbearable burden for all of us. There is no sense appealing to the humanity of someone who does not empathize with their own humanity. I understand now that you do not see yourself as a human, but as gods and masters. I do not know what happened to you that has made you lose your heart. I do not know what training they could ever give you that could ever make you feel justified in harming a person who is suffering and terrified. I do not know what drugs you take to forget the sensation of washing a child's blood off your hands, or to block out the screams and sobs of your victims. I know they echo in the padded rooms and long corridors I still visit in my nightmares. I know the trembling nausea of sleeplessness, of feeling racked with guilt that I survived, that I escaped, when so many of my people do not survive and remain trapped in your cages. I know the heat of hatred and the desire for revenge in my spine and chest and fists, because you taught me what hate was. I will never forgive you for that. What I have learned about madness and care in the 15 years since I have left your walls cannot be taught in universities or in your residencies or experiential learning programs. It cannot be understood through academic texts, biology, or the reasoning of dead white men who stole our mad wisdom, our resilience, and our stories and then turned them for profit to solidify and protect their positions on the tops of rickety ladders. It cannot be understood by martyrs and saviors who seek redemption or wholeness through co-opting our lives, those who use us as props and tokens to gain ground in this crumbling social hierarchy. The sickest thing is that Cornelius Frederick's last words were, "I can't breathe." The sickest thing is the genocide of people with cognitive and physical disabilities globally and continually. The sickest thing is sending people to kill and die for your greed and power and then leaving them to suffer in the streets with their pain without care. The sickest thing is a nation that can justify caging anybody, that can justify punishing people for surviving the terrors of white supremacy, capitalism, ableism, patriarchy, and nationalism. I am unlearning the shame of generations that have been placed on my body by the fathers of medicine and psychiatry, the fathers of toxic masculinity, the fathers of imperialism and greed, and their willing enablers. You who justify your brutalization and torture in the name of medicine, who have the audacity to claim that you are keeping us and our communities safe through your violence, detainment, and coercion. You who call us dangerous, despite the fact that we are more likely to experience violence by your hands than you by ours. We remember, and we will not be silenced by your shame any longer. To the people who are forcibly holding, restraining, and medicating people in foster care homes, halfway homes, prisons, detention centers, psychiatric treatment facilities, and conversion programs, I ask that you spend time with this shame and fear that you place on our bodies and find the root of it. I am afraid it is the only way to be free of it. You are one of the many tangled roots of my shame, and I give it back to you with hopes you remember who you are, so that you never pass this on again. I understand the desire for the illusion of stability, the struggle of making sure bills are paid, and keeping the food on the table. I understand that you are underpaid, overworked, and trained through oppressive and misguided institutions by no fault of your own. However, there is no just doing your job anymore. The decisions you make to comply with cruelty or to resist it will place you firmly on the side of oppression and complicity, or on the side of humanity and justice. How will you justify your choices to yourself at the end of the day? What kind of ancestor do you want to be remembered as? I believe that there is still humanity in you. I want to believe that you feel in your gut how wrong it is every day. I want to believe that you will lose sleep over the violence you enact against us. I hope you look at your children and wonder how you would feel if they were treated the way you treat the people in your cages. I hope you remember that we all were once somebody's child, and no child is born wrong, broken, or evil. I want to believe that you know your comfort and privilege are not worth destroying other human beings. I want to believe that deep down you know that we neurodivergent and disabled people are people, complicated and hurt people who desire and deserve the same things you do. We deserve love, care, safety, comfort, support, and the freedom to explore our passions and curiosities without barriers, restrictions, or fear. There is still time. There is always still time to turn towards justice. There is always still time to do better. And for the sake of our collective future, you have to decide which side of history you will be on today, because we will not disappear or go quietly in the night, and the truth will always be there, no matter how hard you try to hide from it. With hope for our transformation, Elliot Fukui. There's a chance you will not make it through this. Quote by Anne Elizabeth Moore. There's a chance you will not make it through this, whatever this is for you. You may die soon. You will certainly die eventually. Peer at that statement. Ignore that is sorrowful and unkind, even as you also admit that it is true. Take it as a reminder to care for what you love and a plea to be courageous in defiance of unspeakable acts of cruelty. If you do not make it through this, whether it is this disease or this economy or this political regime or these very, very difficult days, let us remember you as someone who loved very deeply. Do not let us forget how much you cared." End quote. This has been an open letter to the psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists, and cops who detain disabled and neurodivergent people. Written March 2nd, 2021, by Elliot Fukui. Read by Naomi Kirst-Schultz, August 8th, 2022.